My name is Leon Walker. I am 58 years old. Today we will be talking about my career, my PTSD, and my narcissistic personality disorder. Things that happened to me in my childhood, how they affected me in my adulthood and my marriage and my relationships. The vibe in my home, it was up and down, in and out, caring parents, supportive parents, but in between that is when the issues had started to happen. But the vibe was always really good. The vibe from my parents was like they were partiers, they were very social, they're very tough and very strong. So the things that were discussed in my family about, what things to do, what not to do, when people touch you, what to say to people when they touch you. My parents spoke about that, but we also had teachers that spoke about that too. But most times what happens is when it was happening to me, I was afraid and embarrassed to talk about people touching me and then what I was engaging in at such a young age. The difference between a little boy, I believe, and a little girl is that I took it as a badge of honor when my cousins were molesting me and my babysitter was having sex with me. All the women that touched me when I was a child were 5 or 6 years older than me. So I kind of felt happy about being able to have an older woman like me, whether it was my cousin or not. My cousins were my first love, by the way. My cousins, the first incident happened when I was around 5 years old. I remember it distinctly because it was a gloomy day, it was cold outside, and I had lost a tooth the night before. And back then, we truly believed in a tooth fairy. So when I woke up, there was money under my pillow because the night before I told my mom I had a loose tooth. And she said, I hope the tooth fairy bring you some money. So she did. I woke up that morning, got my coins from under my pillow, and I had 2 female cousins that were sleeping in my sister's bedroom. And I went in there to show them that I had my coins and my tooth is out. And I said, right when I started talking about going to my favorite candy store, which is Gus's in East Cleveland, it's a candy store on Court Avenue. I told them, I said, hey, I got money from, the tooth fairy. Can you all take me to Gus's after school? I was heading to school that morning. I was in the 1st grade, and before I knew it, they put me on the bed, not tied me down, but held me down, kissed me, sucked in my face, put their tongue in my mouth. I went to school with sucker bites all over my face, my forehead, my neck, and my teacher, I'll never forget this. She said, what happened to you? And I lied to her. I told her I got beat up, I got jumped. But only reason why I was able to say I got jumped is because my mouth was bleeding from the tooth that I had lost. And so I still had blood in my mouth, but she hugged me. She knew I didn't get jumped. She knew that something happened sexually because I had the burgundy marks on my neck, on my cheeks, and my forehead. I was only 5 years old. Both my cousins were probably 11 to 12 years old at the time. And that's when they touched me, I began to like the way it felt. When they kissed me, I began to like the way it felt. When they held me down, I liked all that aggression, and it wasn't like they were beating me up, but they were sexually molesting me. So I started to like that feeling, and it just never went away. But they were 5 or 6 years older than I was. I felt comfortable because the only thing that hurt was the fact that my tooth was out, and I felt pain when they were kissing me and sucking on my mouth. But other than that, I enjoyed it, but I didn't know what to enjoy until when it was over with. And then when I got to school and told my teacher, I felt ashamed, I felt embarrassed, I felt scared because I thought that they would get in trouble and then I would be retaliated against. So when nothing happened to them, they kept coming over. My cousins were coming over all the time. It was just something that I started to like, and they became my first love. And so to me, in my mind, that's what love had become for me. And then it developed some type of sick, twisted thinking when I got later on in life when I was in relationships that love was through sex. What happened is when I started seeing them after that, I knew that it was going to be something sexual, so I saw them as my girlfriends. There was no fear. It was like, that's when my lust began. I had a deep lust for women from that point up until my age at 57, 58 years old now. It was normal to kiss girls. It was normal to kiss my cousins. It was normal for them to touch me, put their hands in my pants. That was normal because that's the first interaction I had with women, and it just so happened to be my female cousins. That probably lasted up until I was 11 or 12. The reason why I say 11 or 12 is because my parents started their divorce when I was 11, and it ended when I was 12 or 13, and we moved. Had we not moved, that would have been going on for probably years to come. So 2 things happened. There's a male member of my family that had me watching porn, and it was a projector. It was an 8mm projector that we stole from my parents' closet and put it in our closet. And that person taught me how to put the reels together and then start and pause and rewind. The 8mm go like that. And so I would run those things for hours at nighttime before I went to school in the morning. And that led me to liking older women because the porn was older women. So what happened was my family member, the male, took the 8mm from my parents' closet and they put it in our bedroom closet because it was 2 of us in my bedroom. I slept in a bunk bed, and he would put the 8mm in the closet, and then he taught me how to start it, stop it, rewind it, and he told me what to do when it got hot to shut it down and had a light on it. And so I would watch hours and hours of porn, and from the porn I would see older women. The first older women that I saw that were naked were white women, and they were pale white women. And so I started liking pale white women as a little boy. That was an attraction to me. And so I would watch hours of porn at nighttime before school. I was 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. And then the women that I saw in porn, I would see them in school. Rather, they weren't the same women, but they were tall, short, slender, thick, pale white, brown women, dark women. And so I had this vision of women that I wanted. And of course, going into the Navy, I found those same type of women that I liked as a 7-year-old, 6-year-old little boy. And what happened was you develop this fantasy of the type of woman or women that you want. So when men become very promiscuous, I think, and I'm not a psychotherapist, but it starts in the childhood of this fantasy that you want. And it's not just what you see, it's what you feel too. So I had this feeling of what it felt like to be with a pale woman, a brown woman, or a dark-skinned woman, or even a thick, voluptuous woman, or a slender woman, because both my cousins that were molesting me were slender. That was my indoctrination to sex. It was through my cousins, through kissing, and touching, and holding, and grabbing. So as I got older, I started to desire that. I started to want that. I started to fiend for that. And so when I would meet girls, it was always to grab them, not aggressively, but grab them and touch them and kiss them, and I became like overly aggressive. And luckily, from what I remember, I never scared a girl, but it was always, I knew, like you said, I knew what to do at such a young age. And girls were like, how do you know how to do these things? Well, my cousins taught. All of my relationships were based on sex because of that. It wasn't based on longevity. It wasn't based on morals, character, integrity. It was my relationships were based on sex. It wasn't based on her mindset, her goals, none of that. And so that's what happened. I was ruined in that way. So it became like a survival instinct for me to just have women sexually and not love or care for them after that. And so they say, we'll talk about that too, but that's when narcissistic people lose their empathy and their ability to love. It starts in the child. So my cousins, I liked them because I didn't see it as wrong. I saw them as grooming me to become a man that was sexual at his early age. I saw my cousins put me on the path to have sex with women that were much older than me and to know what I was doing. And so to me, they groomed me to be mature sexually, but that was it. As I got older, I realized it was a hindrance in my relationship. So what happened to me when I was 8 is that my mother had, her girlfriend had a daughter that was probably 7 years older than I was. And I was already sexually active with my cousins and knowing what to do in porn. And then my babysitter was a slender, brown-skinned woman. So remember, when I saw these porn movies, the women were pale, dark, slender, and brown. And my babysitter had those characteristics. She also had full lips, and she wore dark red lipstick, which I saw the dark red lipstick or bright red lipstick in the porn movies. And so now, with my babysitters, I didn't see her as my babysitter. I saw her as my fantasy coming true. So there was no way for me to not want to engage in sex with her. And we started playing house. I became a father at 8 years old in the fantasy world in the house, and I became her husband in the fantasy world. And we had a car, we had a kitchen, we had a house, we cooked, we had food in the basement, and we had kids. So that's the sexual part. And I fell in love with her too. So yeah, I went into this fantasy world, and it started becoming true to me, and it started feeling good to me. And so again, I thank my cousins. Instead of being angry with them, I engulfed this sexual desire for older women, and they put me on the path to be able to handle, or thought that I could handle, older women. But I would tell you one thing, those older women were attracted to me, and so I would never let that go. I engaged with my babysitter in a relationship, probably been about off and on about 3 years. I can actually remember her picking me up and holding me, taking my pants down and her pants being unzipped. I do remember that because she was taller than I was and older. So yeah, I remember, the sexual encounters I had with my babysitter. So it went off and on for a couple of years. It was full-blown sex, kissing and everything, hugging. And so I learned that at a very young age. And the hugging part I didn't like because I didn't get anything out of hugging. Because, funny, I would say that because when I got older, I didn't like hugging. But as I got older, I just saw women as sexual objects. Once the little boy gets the feeling of what it feels like to engage in sexual activities with a girl his age or older woman, once he feels that closeness, he'll never forget it. Then he'll start to want it all the time. And it's not a closeness of hugging. It's not. It's the closest of interacting with the woman and being sexual. The closeness, the intimacy. But it wasn't. It wasn't like an intimate moment. It was just like aggressive moment that she gave me. She allowed me to have with her. Between the ages of 10 to 12, somewhere in there, when I was home by myself, I remember he would come over and he would tell me to come upstairs, and I didn't know what for. Then he would grab me, and then he would put Vaseline on his hands, and he would put his hands in my pants and make me stand there and just take it. There was never any type of intercourse, but he would always pull me on his back and make me lay on top of him. And then he would get up and put more Vaseline on his hands and put his hands in my pants and fondle me. And you know what, it's strange because I didn't think about these things until I was in therapy at age 48 at the VA hospital. I never talked about it to anyone. And so when I started talking to my therapist, it started coming out. And I could remember it. It was clear as day what he was doing to me between the ages of 10 and 12. And I could still see it. I could still see his face and the grease, the Vaseline, and me standing there and like in shock and feeling like nobody's going to help me, you know. So I developed severe anger issues from that too, because I couldn't fight for myself. So when I did learn how to fight, I was hurting everybody because of him, you know. So I knew this was wrong. But I also knew that if I told on him, again, like if I told on my cousins, there's going to be retaliation. So he would call me upstairs after a while and I just wouldn't go. I would either stay downstairs. I never told my mother, my father, my brother, sister. Nobody ever knew. This didn't come out until 2018. Actually, it came out in therapy in 2015, but it came out in 2018 when I started discussing my childhood, molestation. So yeah, I knew it was wrong. I knew it was bad. I didn't like it. And then I started to want to kill him. So the sexual activity manifested in my teen years by virtue of me only seeing women as sexual objects. I could have become many things. I could have become gay because a man was touching me, but I'm not. I'm straight. Could have become a child molester, but I'm not. I despise child molesters. I became a cheater and I became a sexual deviant of sorts. And so instead of sitting down and having a healthy conversation about life, about goals, and about aspirations, I was always touchy-feely. I would always look at a woman and undress her in front of me. I didn't care where I was. I would undress her. That was my way of getting her attention. If she looked at me and smiled, then we go on to the next level. But it was never about being my girlfriend. It was always about being my sex partner. I didn't tell them that in the beginning, but that's what they wound up becoming. But I would lie to them as far as being in a relationship with them. So I became very promiscuous, and it was very easy for me to cheat because one woman, two women, three women just wasn't enough for me. I was chasing those same feelings and emotions that I got from my cousins when I was 5, and I got from my babysitter when I was 8. I was chasing those same emotions and feelings that they gave me. So I looked for women to just give me a certain desire through sex and not holding hands and not cuddling and not communicating. I couldn't be in a relationship with one woman. I tried it. And then what I found out was that I was always looking at another woman, whether it was a next door neighbor, right? Somebody I was in school with, a manager of sorts, one of my managers that was a woman, somebody at the grocery store. If I'm with my girlfriend, I was always getting caught looking. I was always getting caught cheating. I just didn't have, out of a racist appetite for women, and one woman just wasn't enough for me. I chose to be in that mindset because that's what felt better for me. I knew better. I saw my parents married for a long time and they were loving and caring. But when the divorce started, they were hateful. And so I knew better. I had a great foundation, don't get me wrong. But I chose this pattern and this path because that's what felt good to me. That's what felt safe to me, not connecting with women on an emotional level, just a sexual level. And that's what ruined my marriage and my relationships. The male member of my family drilled a hole in my mother's bedroom wall that was adjacent to the bathroom. So when my parents had these parties every Friday night, the women would come upstairs to use the bathroom and then the men would go downstairs. When we heard them coming upstairs, we would go to the glory hole and look through. I saw grown women. You guys go to the bathroom, you adjust your bra, some of you pull your pants out in the bathroom. I would sit there and watch women all night long, and they didn't know it, so I became a peeping Tom. That was the glory hole. Speaking of how did I handle or what did I do to go to the next level sexually, it was either the military. So the military exposed me to exotic women. Prior to the military, I come from a town that's predominantly black, a high school that's predominantly black, so it was only black women. We had maybe one or two white women, but I didn't mess with them. When I joined the military, now I'm exposed to Australian women, Asian women from Thailand, the Philippine Islands, from Hong Kong, Korea, Africa, China, Canada, Hawaii, everywhere. And so that took me to the next level of my sexual desires for having a voracious appetite towards women. So my uncle was in the Army, my dad was in the Army, my cousin was in the Army, my brother was in the Marines. I knew I was going to the military when I was 9 years old. My parents never talked about college. They both dropped out in the 8th grade. So I saw artifacts about the military in my house. I made my mind up at 9 years old to start working out. I had 8 years to get ready for the military. The problem is I couldn't concentrate in school because I was molested and I was being touched. So I didn't consider myself smart. I didn't think I was smart. I didn't think I could learn. I was called slow. I say that because taking the ASVAB, Armed Services Vocational Aptitude and Battery exam for the Navy, I failed it 4 times and I passed in my 5th try. I knew I wasn't going to college. I never took the SAT. I was hell-bent on going to the military. I finally passed it on my 5th try, scored the minimum of 31, and boom, that was my moment to get in the military and to have fun and to travel and sleep with exotic women. One of the major issues that had started my PTSD was in 1987. If you get a chance, look up the USS Stark. We were in the Persian Gulf. My ship was in the southern part of the Persian Gulf. I was 21 years old, and they were patrolling the northern part of the Persian Gulf. They got hit by 2 missiles from an Iraqi jet. The missiles were called Exocet, French-made Exocet missiles. And so we were tasked to transit to the northern part of the Persian Gulf, which took almost 24 hours, or 12 hours for us to get there. And when you join the Navy, everybody essentially becomes a firefighter. You go to firefighter school and you get taught how to fight a fire, the class of fire, and what to use. And so we deployed that year, and then they got hit by 2 missiles May 17th of 1987. We didn't get there till the next day. We transiting the southern part to the northern part of Persian Gulf, and my team was selected to go in there and fight the fires. It was 1 fire by the time we got there, and we didn't know how many people were there. By the time I got there, there was 37 men dead, burned to death, blown up. There was fingers everywhere. There was feet. There were hands, there was skin. It was a mess. And so I didn't realize that day, May 18th, 1987, I developed severe PTSD. I had no idea because I was 21 years old and I'd never been in war. I was 21 years old, I'd never seen a burned body. I was 21 years old, I had never picked up fingers, hands, feet. But I had to go around with a plastic Ziploc bag and look for fingers and hands and feet to identify the bodies. So that's when my PTSD started. But I didn't get treated until 2015, or like 27 years later, when I'm transferring out of the Navy and I'm getting my retirement physical. They asked me, has there anything happened to me, not just my childhood, but in the military, and I started talking about it, and you get a series of questions based on the incident, and that's when they determined that I had severe PTSD. But I wasn't treated before that. There was no pills, there was no therapy, so I was going through my military career with these mental issues, and I didn't know what it was from. You don't know how to process it, and you just get up and you go to work. I was on that ship that was sinking. You see the picture of it sinking. I was on that when it was sinking for 12 hours, and so as we pumped the water out, it starts to come up. As the ship started to come up, we pumped the water out. We're putting bodies in body bags, picking up people, putting them in body bags, peeling them off the deck, picking up fingers, picking up hands, looking at heads that didn't have any skin, or the eyeballs are burned out, the ears are burned off, the nose are burned off, the mouth is burned off. Yeah, it was horrible. The teeth turned black from the smoke. I'll never forget that. And so to this day, I have nightmares about the Persian Gulf. To this day, I can't sleep with lights out in my house. I can't. It's not gonna happen. Because the minute it goes dark, I think about the men that I was rescuing, and they were dead already, but I think about the bodies that we put in those bags. Whenever I turn out all the lights, it comes back to me. Now I look back on it, my excessive drinking, my addiction to my addiction to cigarettes, cigars, my extreme addiction to sex, my extreme anger issues, my ability to enjoy hurting people, women specifically. It wasn't physical. It was a mental thing that I had to be in control. I had to be dominant. I had to be right. I hated being wrong. I was always thinking about somebody hurting me or hurting my kids. I would always think about wanting to hurt somebody and not know why. If somebody made me mad, I couldn't talk it out. I wanted to just choke people all the time, or slap somebody or shoot somebody. I was always envisioning myself hurting people violently. I was always fantasizing about hurting my ex-wife, hurting, other people. And because I was doing something wrong and I got caught out, I didn't like being wrong. And when I would get upset, it would just be such an intensive, good feeling. And I didn't feel bad about it. And I'm like, man, I make somebody cry, I laugh at them. I felt good about making people cry that it worked for me. I felt good about making my kids cry. I felt good about punishing my kids. It gave me this euphoric feeling. So I knew something was wrong, but I just never got any help for 27 years until 2015, between 2015 and 2018. So I met my wife in 1994. We got married, and I think it was 1995. I wasn't ready to get married. I didn't know what love was like. I knew that I was attracted to her, and I knew that I didn't want anybody else to have her. And so when I met her, I was dating 4 other women. And this is my grandiose mindset, my greed, my lust, all of my childhood stuff. It just kept following me. So I didn't do anything to stop it. I didn't get any help. So we got married, but I wasn't a good husband. She was a good wife. She was the lady that wanted to be a wife at 27, 20 years old, somewhere in there. But I wasn't. I wanted to marry her so nobody else could have her. I was very selfish, and I wasn't honest to tell her, I'm dating somebody else while I'm engaged to you. It was bad. And so I was cheating. I cheated a lot. And, it hurt my kids. It hurt the relationship. 1995 to 1996, I went from 180 pounds to 245 pounds, something like that. 190 to 245. I gained like 55 pounds in 1 year. I had suicide ideations in 1996. And I gained weight, and they put me on a diet plan. They gave me an appointment to see a psychiatrist, and I denied everything. I went from being the #1 Navy recruiter in Cleveland to number 144 out of 144. And that whole year, I was ranked #1. And then I started cheating. I started smoking more cigarettes. I started drinking more. I started watching more porn while I was married, and my addictions went through the roof. I had anxiety, I had depression, but I also had PTSD, but I didn't know it. So I was masking all my pain through and porn and being angry and mistreating my wife. So when I mistreated her, I felt good about mistreating her. That made me feel good. And so I didn't realize why I was doing these things. I didn't know. I didn't. But I knew that it was wrong, I'll tell you that much. With me, people like me and the other people that have MPD, you start doing extraordinary things to make yourself look good and feel good, to get that adulation from other people, to get the hand claps and the high fives and the hugs from other people. I knew I was damaged. I knew I had damaged my family. I knew I was a mean father and I was a cheating husband. But what do? I go look for these things to get awards. So when I was ranked #1 in Cleveland as a recruiter, I was recruiter of the year for 2 years. And then the following year, I started cheating and drinking and driving under the influence, and my career started going down. I started imploding. So instead of getting help and seeing a therapist, what do? I go do these miraculous things in the Navy to recover and make people like me again. But that didn't fix anything. It just puts a Band-Aid on the damaged people that I had around me, my wife at the time and my 1-year-old son, and then all my co-workers. So all I did was put a Band-Aid on the wound and then kept pouring hot sauce on it, take the Band-Aid off, put more hot sauce on, put the Band-Aid on it, and go do something extraordinary so people are like me. I did that for a long time, and over 30 plus years I did that. In the military, we turn out to be a little better, not better than people, but we roll in therapy, I think more often than not, because it's contingent upon your disability rating. For narcissistic personality disorder, you don't get any disability rating. It's a disorder, but for PTSD, you get a disability rating for arthritis, for migraines, for sleep apnea. When I started my retirement physical, you go see the dentist, the ear, nose, and throat doctor, the neurologist, the chiropractor, and then you have a stop with the psychiatrist. And I was like, I'm not doing that. But they were like, oh, yes, you are. And so that's when it happened. When I started sitting down with my psychiatrist, I walked into the psychotherapist's office and I walked out. I walked back in and walked out. Went to the psychiatrist, walked out. Went back to the psychotherapist and I stayed. And I stayed in therapy for a year. After walking in and walking out, and I finally sat down to face Leon. I finally sat down to face the people that molested me, the people that took my virginity, the people that made me watch porn, the man that knocked my mother's teeth out, the man that choked my mother. I finally sat down and faced my dad, I finally sat down and faced my mom, who was a crack addict from 1985 to 2011 until she died in 2012. I finally sat down and faced all the people that I was angry with for 30 plus years and wouldn't let go of the anger. Those are the people that caused me to be angry towards other people and act like these things didn't exist. Those are the people that caused me to have this false sense of reality and act like these things didn't exist. And so I went into this fantasy world and I stayed there. But when I got into therapy, the fantasy started to crash down on me and I was afraid of that happening. That's why a lot of people, especially black men, don't go to therapy because they start to implode. But when you implode, you can explode and you can be open and honest with the person in front of you that's not going to judge you. So that's when it started, when I got my retirement physical. The way it changed me as a person, it allowed me to regulate my emotions. When narcissistic people go through therapy, it's called talk therapy. So you talk, you get it out. Before that, I wasn't talking to anybody. I was lying to people. There's nothing wrong with me. My ex-wife said, there's something wrong with you. You need to get checked. My ex-girlfriend, there's something wrong with you. You got a problem. Nothing wrong with me. But it helped me talk. It helped me realize that I'm not a bad person. Bad things happen to me. And because the bad things happen to me, I did bad things to other people. And when other people did bad things to me and they didn't regret it, I did bad things to other people and I didn't regret it either. So I was carrying forward 35, 40 years of anger from other people. And the crazy part about it, the people that damaged me, 3 of them were dead. 2 got murdered and 1 died of poison. My one cousin, her boyfriend stabbed her to death and left the knife inside of her. My other cousin died from drinking too much. And the man that was touching me got his head blown off. He got shot in the mouth with a shotgun. And when I started talking about those things, I started laughing because that was my payback, my revenge. But my therapist said, no, that's, okay, let's let it go, get it out, laugh. And then I started maturing after 48 years old, saying that wasn't cool to laugh at them because somebody had did something to them. They just did it to me. And then I did it to other people. I was never a child molester. I was never a rapist. I was never gay, but I did watch a lot of porn. I was a cheater, and I was a serial dater, and I was a serial liar. Yes, that's who I was. As a black man in the community, you don't tell people that, oh, she touched me. Oh, man, my cousin molested me. No, you say, hey, man, I'm sleeping with my cousin. Hey, man, I had sex when I was 8 years old with my babysitter. It's a braggadocious type of thing. It's just a badge of honor for black men. Maybe Asian, white men, Latin men too, but definitely black men. Therapy is taboo for us. We don't go to therapy. We don't talk about our issues. We hold that in. Suck it up. Be a man, right? Pound your chest. No, that ruined me. What I do now is I talk raw, just like I speak to you raw. I make videos on social media, and I have a pretty large following. And the most people that follow me are the women because they want to know the truth. How can I help my husband, Leon? How can I help my boyfriend? How can I help my son? Men don't follow me as much as women do. In 3 years, I've amassed almost 500,000, I call people listeners, not followers. Out of that almost 500,000, 9 men have reached out to me in 3 years. And of those 9 men, 4 are steady. And of those 4 men that talk to me, they're all under the age of 4. I get women call me from age 20 to 75, daily, weekly, monthly, wanting to know, how can I help my husband? How can I help my son? How can I help my grandson? Men don't call me, don't reach out, don't follow me. They don't. But that's okay. My ex-girlfriend is the reason why I make these videos. My ex-girlfriend is the reason why I found you all. By looking at people and seeing who's doing what and helping people. Had it not been for her, I would not have been making these videos about my personality disorder. Yes, I have PTSD. Yes, I have NPD. Yes, I have anxiety and depression. I do. But I'm moving forward and I'm helping people, and helping people making these videos is therapy for me. My medical record says therapy will be indefinite for this personality disorder for this young man. It will be indefinite, and they stamped it. If I don't go to therapy next year or year after, I still be making videos and helping people and telling my story. That helps me just like you're interviewing me now.